How staying inside only made my black pill mentality louder. You know, about 2 years ago was the best time for me to just stay inside, right? I would always be on my phone. I would play video games till, well, I got too tired and would turn the game off. And I wouldn't even go out to talk to like a family member. The only time I'd go out of my room was to get like food, essentially. Sadly, that was it. And during that time inside, I think it would be, you'd think it'd be the most cozy time, right? No, I would be at my most negative in here. I would always reject calls from my best friend and I'd tell him that I just didn't see the calls, but I still don't even know if he knows this, but I just ignore most of them. I would decline invites from other friends, telling me to come outside and do something. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm tired. I got homework and something. I rarely did homework during that time, unless I needed to, because, a test was coming up or whatever. It was so quiet, and my mind had room to be so loud because I isolated myself. I did this on purpose, and I didn't see just how bad that was. And that's what we're here to talk about. When I was in my room, those thoughts would be the only thing to keep me company because I didn't pray, I didn't talk to anyone. I would only have short calls from my friends telling me to come outside, and I was like, no. I had YouTube, TikTok, all these apps to just, you know, consume my mind with black pill content, and then that would be what my mind would generate from the moment I got home from school to the moment I'd go to sleep. Because after I got home from school, I had no like social interactions whatsoever. And during the weekends, it'd be worse because I'd just be in my room all day. Unless my family was like forcing me to come out because I had to do something. I couldn't just be inside. And what I did was just give give the black pill a place to grow. It would just it was just the biggest playing field I could give the black pill without realizing it. Because I never liked it. Like, I agreed with it at the time, but I never liked it. I don't think anyone likes it. I think people just believe in it. But that's it. And being in my own bedroom was the biggest playing field for the black pill. And that's the problem. When you are isolated, when you have nothing else to focus on but your thoughts and what you consume on the phone, the internet, video games, and crap, you have nothing to save you from the thoughts forming up in you. It's always it's always going to be there. It's never going to shut up unless you make it shut up. But you can't really tell your mind to shut up because how many times did that work? Like never. That never works for me anyway. And yeah, what I'm trying to say is when you're indoors, especially by yourself in your bedroom, you are too vulnerable for those negative thoughts to come up. And if you really have nothing else to focus on in your life except for, I don't know, school, but if that's not your dream, then how often do you really think about it outside of school? Basically, never. And that's when you're vulnerable to thoughts like that to come up. And the more you consume on the internet, the more possibilities you have for different thoughts to come up. Mainly the black pill, because that's what this channel is about. So, the action for today would be fight isolation. And when I say fight isolation, sorry, I'm getting the feeling somebody's going to come in. When I say fight isolation, I don't mean go out and do drugs with others because at least you're social, right? No. I mean get out of that isolation place first. Get out of your bedroom. You know, there's more in this world, and I do remember when I was in that place, I truly didn't believe there was much more for me outside of the black pill and what it stood for and attraction and getting girls and whatnot, those things. Because I had nothing else that was feeding my mind at the time. I had no other perspective because the only perspective I was seeing was the videos I'd see on TikTok. And because I like the black pill content, I'll only really see black pill content. So there was not much else for me to see, or so I would think. And that's why isolation is very, very dangerous when it comes to what your thoughts might do, because it's so quiet. It's only you, it's only your perspective, it's only your ideas, it's only what you like, when it comes to games and the internet. It's only your spirit that's in the room when you're by yourself, when you're isolated. And being by yourself might sound fun, like most introverts are like, yeah, I like being by myself, doing stuff by myself. Yeah, for a moment, maybe. There are many exercises you do alone, and that's good. People sometimes can be distracting, and it's good to have a moment alone. But when you are isolated, there is nobody to get you out in case you get into a negative mind space. And that's why isolation is something I would prohibit for myself, and that I didn't prohibit at the time because I thought it felt great to be isolated, to be by myself. Nobody else to worry about, no anxiety and what to say to a person because it was just myself and my thoughts, right? No. Being by yourself, it was builds anxiety. It's what builds anti-socialism because you train yourself to not be able to speak to others. You train yourself to only have the thoughts that you yourself entertain. And for us, it's the black pill. So, fight isolation. And it's more than just isolation, because what I wrote here is do your best to enjoy the things before the black pill. Before you got into that headspace of black pill and black pill content, before you started believing in that mumbo jumbo, the black pill's been around for a while. Not just when TikTok started blowing up with that type of content. It's been out for decades. Maybe you and I only found out about it around the TikTok trend, with the TikTok trends, looks max and whatnot. Or maybe not. Maybe you've been around a little longer for that. But nevertheless, there was a time before you started thinking like that. There was a time when, and I'm not talking about childhood or whatever. I'm talking about the mind space you were in before you started with the black pill stuff, before you started isolating yourself, before you started calling yourself an introvert. And in, the small cases, you might have been an introvert your whole life, and that's okay. For me personally, I was pretty extroverted before. I was very talkative. And then in my teens, that just stopped. And then the isolation started. And what you have to do is basically enjoy the things around you that aren't in the isolated spot that you're in. Your bedroom would be in this case. When I started going out and enjoying other things, and I know there's a lot of TikToks talking about go out and enjoy nature, and you realize that your room isn't all that fun and negative thoughts don't really build up because nature is so beautiful. Yeah, well, nature is a good thing. Fresh air is actually good for your mind, but spend time with things outside of nothing, outside of just being inside. First of all, be outside. You know the phrase touch some grass. Well, it's more than just touching grass. It's touch the part of you that wants to be more than just a bubble of negative thoughts inside your own space, isolated without anybody to pull you out. Well, my mission here is to pull you out, but it's essentially you that pulls yourself out. If you really want to be pulled out, I suggest Jesus. That's what worked for me. But in general, self-improvement. Find something to do outside of your room that pulls you out of your room when you want to stay in. Let me see what I wrote. There we go. Essentially what I wrote, the more you spend your time doing things outside, being with other beings, finding new perspectives, listening to new conversations, finding new roadmaps for what to do in your day, finding new things to do in your schedule, outside of the school and whatever you're doing right now, outside of work. The more your mind starts to not feel alone, the less you isolate yourself, the less your mind feels isolated. And it also starts feeling more present. You start feeling more present in the moment. And those negative thoughts go away, and then a more positive voice starts speaking to you. Because you're not as vulnerable. The devil loves to get you when you're alone. Because it's quiet, So it wants to fill up that silence with bad things. But if you fill that silence with good things by not being in solitary confinement, basically, then that voice has no place to fit in. I talk about something similar in my course. Check out the link in the description. It's a more deeper journey through the black pill cleansing, but that's only if you really need it. Fight isolation. Because when you do, there's no place for the black pill to grow. Or those thoughts, anyway. And when there are more perspectives around, more ideas, more people, etc., then there are more things that your mind can think about, more things that won't make your mind delusional, more things that won't make it only think about itself. You'll become less egotistical, I guess. And when you do that, suddenly playing games all day isn't that interesting. Suddenly being inside is kind of boring. Suddenly being introverted is kind of whack. Suddenly you want to be more. Suddenly a new voice starts to speak. And suddenly those thoughts are not that loud anymore. Or even silent, completely mute. And that's pretty much what I wanted to say. I started going out of my, comfort zone. The biggest reason most of us are just inside all the time is because we're comfortable in here. But your mind's not that comfortable with those thoughts. And to make sure that the important things are comfortable, you have to be in uncomfortable situations. You have to get out of your comfort zone. And I guess that's a different topic, but in this case, get out of the comfort of your own home, your own bedroom, anyway. If you're really deep down in that area, I'd suggest just getting out of the room for now. If you have others, a family, if you live with your family, if you live with your roommate or whatever, try to go out, be in the living room so you can live, right? Be in other rooms, not only to get food, but to get some company. And yeah, essentially, that's what I wanted to talk about today. Fight isolation because in silence is when you're most vulnerable to thoughts. And because we're black pillars or trying to be former black pillars, those are the thoughts that usually come up. That's it. Thanks for listening, and you can thank me for what I said.